past, New Brunswick was defined only Anglophone, Francophone, and they always ignored Mi'kmaq, Wolastoqey, and Passamaquoddy as part of the New Brunswick identity. That has to be also. We have to promote that. We have to remind New Brunswick citizens that New Brunswick is more in history of Anglophones and Francophones. Before Anglophones and Francophones, there were Mi'kmaq people, Wolastoqey people, and Passamaquoddy people. So, and they made important contributions. That's another reason to celebrate, because of the contributions made by the Mi'kmaq Wolastoqey people in early contact period, and even right now. And I get upset when I hear people complain about all the money being transferred to First Nations for different programs, and I get upset because they don't realize that all of that money that's being transferred, it's spent outside of the community. So money is sent to St. Mary's, it's spent at Walmart or different stores here. Same thing in Tobic. When money is transferred for different programs and services, that money is spent outside of that. Perth Andover, Grand Falls, but Canadian citizens don't realize that everybody benefits. It isn't just the Mi'kmaq Wolastoqey people that benefit from these services. Everyone benefits. It contributes to the local economy, contributes to the provincial economy, and contributes to the Canadian economy as well. Well, okay.
Hi.
Yes.
Thank you so much for making time for us.
Hi, Cameron.
Cameron, I'll take it. Okay.
Awesome
So
to meet you.
should I go on that?
Yeah, if you
Yes,
would
yeah,
mind.
yeah. Yeah, I want to hear her story too. I'll stick around.
I should have,
Yeah.
I went to go get gas.
Yes.
They're out of power at St. Mary's.
Oh, no.
So I couldn't get gas, so I only have like 22 clicks left to go, so we
Might
can't
have
go
to
too
drive you
far.
back in my
And
car.
So right on, yeah. And so, what are the questions? Is there, yeah.
So the first one that we just asked David was your thoughts on the Canada 150 celebrations, and kind of what would you like to see changed, what would you like people to know? It's really just open-ended, whatever you
Okay.
want to talk about.
Okay.
is wonderful.
All right.
Don't worry about
Yeah.
picking the greatest question either. Just ignore me.
Oh, no problem, okay.
Yeah.
So-
You are okay if we...
Oh, absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. And so, Mullah's welcome. Adlid Babetchi Gaziak. Abjil Nita Dunk de Bida Hadam, Wajias Adotum is Chundladwe Wagon. Ablossom was not missing the way of open. Glamagan Appen didn't wakan, and Wizwin Canox Kira de Kajkis on Gawakan, Kisidash and Namkamipton. I just want to give gratitude for the interest. And I think the first thing that comes to mind is the fact, and I want people to know that our language may not be thriving in its users, but as far as I'm concerned, the language is very much alive. If I can still name my environment in my language, then it's the language that's still alive. It's the speakers that we're losing.
Mhm.
And so that's the most important thing. And just recently, yesterday, we did a presentation at the convention center for their team at the convention center, what they call a cultural awareness session, or cultural safety session, or competency session, or what we call circle of understanding. And I noticed my work, translations. So when they put up the panels of Old Fredericton at the convention center, it has French, English, or English, French, and Maliseet. Now, anybody going down that corridor may question, as they have at the Lieutenant Governor's house, why is the Maliseet in the basement? Why isn't it up on the main floor or up in residence? And I said, I don't see it that way. I see it as, since our Wolastoqey or Maliseet is the first language, then it should be as the foundation. So I see the bottom as the most honored place and not necessarily the one on top. And so I promote that now we're the foundation, we're the first language of this land, and that's where it belongs. But most people wouldn't think that way. So I think that's one of the things that I want to promote is language is alive. Language continues to grow. Matter of fact, there's proof here. They're doing a mural downstairs, and the artists have asked me for Wolastoqey words to what's the word for diversity? What's the word for community? What's the word for friendship? What's the word for peace? So if these words, so we get to put those words there, So for me, every word is like a petroglyph or a bead on a wampum belt that'll be passed on many generations after we're gone. Canada 150, I see it as a celebration of our culture. I don't know if David shared with you about thesis defense that we went to this morning. It was very emotional because it was 10 years in the making, because it was an elder who was alive at the time, and David and I did a project called Before the Dam. The reason that title is important, and I think it has everything to do with what Canada's going through right now, is I realized when I was visiting my elders how much they missed the language, because the only time they would hear it is if David and I came to visit. Otherwise, it's generationally absent. So every time I ask the question like, well, how did you heal before the hospitals came? What did you do if somebody needed surgery? What medicines did you use? How did you deal with mental health issues? And every time I ask any of my elders, they would always say, well, before the dam was built, we used to have a sacred site. We'd go and we'd do healing ceremonies by our river, but the dam covered that up. Before the dam was built, we used to pick this particular medicine that was actually good for cancer, but the dam covered it up. And they went on and on and on, and then it just clicked before the dam. This is a story that needs to be saved. So we were lucky to do those stories completely in the language. The reason they're not online now is because the one who was helping me with the translations passed away. She was the first elder in residence. And so they're still waiting, you know what I mean, to come out. Mm-hmm. But what's beautiful about that, and this is why I'm so proud to celebrate my culture, and that it survived, is those stories let me know what good relationship really is. When you really think of the land, or think of land as a relative, water as a relative, our trees as relatives, our four-leggeds as relatives, it's a whole different worldview. And so that's what the language gifts, is that real relationship with our purposes here. So that's what I want to celebrate. I want to just at the defense today, it was an elder that I apprenticed with. And it was emotional because pictures of him were shown, and but I wanted to, I'm glad that we brought the student in to do the work, and I'm glad the elder is being honored. But I don't want that work to be on a shelf in the library and somebody find it 100 years from now. I want that work to be used right away, because it has everything to do with health, security, cultural security, safety, cultural safety and all of that. And so those are the kind of things I think that need to be brought forward, is we don't need, I'm sorry, I was just thinking about, I should have brought it, but I have a medicine bottle that belonged to my mother. And my mother stopped using traditional medicine because she was given so many I think she had up to 22 medications that the doctor told her she had to have, otherwise she would pass away. I believe I could have had her longer than 80 years if she would have stayed on her traditional medicine. And so I took one of her medicine jars when it was empty, and I had it beaded, and I put traditional medicine in it. And so now I go to, when I do my healing sessions, I show them I have a different kind of medicine that can either heal your heart if it's broken, could even heal your body if there's some place you ache, or it could heal your thinking so that you can think yourself well. Or it will heal your spirit if you want to do ceremony. And so for me, that's healing. It's not putting the Band-Aid over a wound and covering it up or medicating it so that you don't even know it's there. That's not the kind of healing we're used to. And so in today's society, and especially as we're celebrating this, we really have to be connected to the land, and the only way we can be is to use our language. The reason I say that is because English objectifies. So when English describes environment, it's the earth, the sky, the sun, the moon. In our language, we're related to all that. It's Father Sky, Earth Mother, Grandmother Moon, grandfather Sun, brothers and sisters. And so when our language is gone, then how is that relationship going to be maintained without the language? So I'm teaching my grandchildren, even when they use English, that the isn't in our language, but it's in English. I want them to know the difference. It may say in English the earth, but I always want you to be respectful to our Earth Mother and treat her just as if you would treat your own mom. And that doesn't mean hollering at her, you know what I mean, or being disrespectful. It means, you know. So that's what we're celebrating, is that worldview is very much alive, and we just have to share it. And you know, ironically, it's not just for Indigenous people. It's a universal way of thinking, and could be if we were just given the chance. I'm hoping in this celebratory year, that's why I use the word Askamil, because for me it's beyond that. You know, it was before it and beyond it. You know, that this is still alive, and so that's what I'll be celebrating for Canada 150. I think about many elders that I've worked with just in my 68 years of life, and I think I can name 150 elders that I've learned from. You know, when we talk about land-based education being the new buzzword, I have to chuckle because that's how we learned. You know, we classrooms were an inconvenience. Couldn't wait to get out of class because we learned more outside of class than we did what we learned in the classroom. So now it's this new buzzword, and David and I will tell you, we learned more when we were going to our garden and we were told to respect every single seed that was put into the garden. And it wasn't just picking and eating, it was thank you for the food you're providing for us. Thank you for the patience you show me because I'm not that good at this or that, you know. And so, you know, it becomes a real cultural safety issue. When we talk about food security, for example, our diets have changed to the point where we have health issues that don't belong to us. We never had diabetes, we never had cancer, we never had any of those things, but because our diet had to change because we were told, here's Tobic Reservation, and we weren't allowed to leave without the Indian agent's approval. But when we were put on reservations as a way of containing us, I guess, they didn't tell the animals, sorry dear moose, you can't go beyond this because these people are going to need you for their sustenance. They didn't tell the salmon you can only swim to the edge of Tobic because these people are going to need you for their sustenance. So now we get all that stuff from cans instead, where we didn't before. And so our diet's changing, and depending on other imported foods, of course we're going to have health issues. So I really stress to our youth, and David and I have actually experienced a year back in the 90s where we were hosting a cultural camp for our high school students because we were knowing they were leaving school earlier than they should. And we knew it was because of cultural, lack of cultural safety and competency in the curriculum. So we hosted these week-long cultural camps for our students and for non-Indigenous students. The first one we hosted, we ordered salmon from the Miramichi, and we must have had about 40 salmon that were donated for the students to enjoy. And what a shocker when the students said, "We don't like this. I thought we were going to have a barbecue. This is a camp. We wanted hot dogs and hamburgers." And I think that was an awakening for us, like, whoa, has assimilation rised?
Mm-hmm.
Because now it's in the next generation, and stuff. So it was a wake-up call for us. We have to do more to make sure that we reverse that assimilation, process and increase our cultural awareness to our own people, to our own youth. And that's why Wolastoq is one of the things I'd like to do this year. I really want to do a water ceremony. I'm doing a water ceremony this month, actually. There we have a Peruvian Indigenous elder that's coming. So St. Mary's is going to be hosting it, and we're going to be doing some workshops. But I want to do a water ceremony because I want to tell them how important Wolastoq is. And sometimes during the year, I'd like to lead students or anybody to our river, maybe in June, when it's Aboriginal month, to have everybody just holler Wolastoq, and the more people, I've just got this idea of doing a flash mob or something of Wolastoq all at once, you know what I mean? And that way, our Wolastoq. And we've had, just thought about something that a ceremony I did before. We were invited to go a few years back. King's Landing wanted an Aboriginal day. So we're going, okay, we can bring our culture to King's Landing for a day. So we set up a teepee, I dressed in regalia, I did ceremony, and we did the welcome we, probably would have done, what our ancestors would have done. But before we did that, my teacher and I went to the river by King's Landing, and we whispered, "You can hear your language again, because our people are invited. And you haven't heard the language in a long time because King's Landing there's nothing indigenous about King's Landing except the land, and stuff. So we said we were going to bring, you can hear your language again." My friend and I went up to the tree, and she was on one side with her back to the tree, and I'm on this side, and we held hands, and we said a prayer in our language. And the energy from that tree was so amazing that it's actually emotional to know that it's as if the tree was saying, that it was an ancestral tree that's been there for a while, that, yeah, I remember that language, So we were excited about it. And actually we broke the record for attendance that year and stuff, and I'm hoping, actually I don't think we ever got asked back again. I'm not sure why. And stuff, but it was a wonderful day. But that's a belief that we have, that the more our land, our water, and I don't mean it our indigenous, I mean our collectively, when it hears the first language, I think it's going to dispel the pollution in the air. It's going to dispel how dark our Wolastoq, our great-grandmother Wolastoq is, And I have a story that I think I'd like to share somehow. And this happened in 2010. I always share this story because I want people to know, as river descendants of the people of the river, the ceremonies we do for river, but also our responsibility to her. And in 2010, Fredericton was going through the flooding, that the water was actually going into the streets up to Queen Street. My elder, Charles Salmon, the one that defense was about today, he calls me up in the middle of the night and he says, "Natsel, Dachina Jimi Abin," which means get dressed, we have to go pray. The flood's getting too bad. And Kuchkwipan Kwipun, Nagakudamorgan, bring your pipe, bring your feather, and I'll be waiting for you. So they said, "Where are you going?" I said, "I gotta go to the elder, okay, now?" Yeah. So I went, and when I got there, normally he was waiting on his chair. This time he was waiting outside. Already he had his, headdress on, had his moccasins on, had his medicine pouch. And I said, "Where are we going?" He says, "Up to the head pond." So at the head pond, he's saying, "I'm going to stand here and I'm going to smudge. And I want you to go down to the edge of the Mectaquac." So I went up to the head pond, and I went up to the edge. He said, "Fill your pipe." And so I'm kind of because it's dark, so I'm kind of watching, and boy, this water's really kind of going down fast. Then I hear him go, Deb milk," and I'm going, "Deb milk?" I said, "Are you sure put mo in Deb milk in? Are you sure you want me to step into the water?" And he goes, "You have to, because she won't feel you. She has to feel you when you talk to her. It's like sitting in your grandmother's lap," he said. So I'm looking at that water and I'm going, okay, and I've got moccasins on, so I'm really kind of, making sure I don't get swept away. As soon as I got my footing, I started to pray and I started to light my pipe. I cannot believe how the water was so gentle. That roaring, you could even hear it like falls. But it got so quiet and just gently flowed as I was speaking in my language. That's when I knew all the time why I'm a descendant of the people of the river. That was my relative, and I felt that. So what ended up happening is I'm praying, the sun was rising, and of course the traffic on the Mactaquac was starting to go. And somebody came out and said, "Sir, you want us to get her out of the water?" Of course he thought, well, that's an indigenous person. They must be committing suicide. So that's what he said. "You want us to get her out of the water? Is she committing suicide?" And he goes, no, leave her alone. She's praying. And he goes, "Praying for what?" "For the water to recede. And saying we're sorry to our great-grandmother river because we haven't been respectful to her. We haven't protected her.